And from the get-go, I looked at this sudden and undebated change and think to myself, why has this suddenly happened? This is not a progressive government. This is a conservative government. In the intervening time, a lot of people assumed that decriminalising cannabis suddenly turned Thailand into Amsterdam. That was never the intention. And what's become a broad recreational use, which is like spread like wildfire around Thailand. And we've now got an election coming up, and I think there's going to be a hard landing to all this.
Welcome to the Fruiting Body Podcast with your host, Brendan. This is shot after this podcast because now I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to see. But first, we have another legend of a guest. It's his third time coming back on the podcast. First time ever for any guest. But before I let you know who it is, check out who we are, Fruiting Body Podcast. We are a medicinal mushroom company located on the island of Phuket. We're doing lion's mane, reishi, mushroom complex, and the one and only nootropics focused. This allows me to stay dialed in and focused. Some people say it's a replacement for Adderall and ADHD medicine. Now, back, I bet you're all wondering who was on this, well, on this podcast. It was Tim Newton making his third appearance. I'm going to tell you everything we talked about today. We're focusing primarily on, well, Tim's new revolution and movement going after the Thaiger. So again, hashtag Tim is taking over. We're also talking, he's laughing at me here. He's not liking it. We're also talking about, he's doing a retirement program. That's where he's going to be living. People will be able to come to Thailand, retire. He's going to offer all those services and take over. Tim, you can jump into the mic. I know you want it.
Well, I'm just listening to what I'm meant to be saying today.
And we jumped a little bit into the cannabis industry, not actually probably a good 20 minutes of the cannabis industry and what was going on there and Tim's thoughts on that, and also on the trans movement as well. And we go pretty deep into that. Now, if you're tired of listening to me ramble, we got chapters below. So all those topics I just discussed, you can navigate and it will shut me up and you can move on. But if you haven't already subscribed, you should. Hit that subscribe, hit the bell, and don't hit me with that club.
Otherwise, we'll use this on you.
Yeah, that's not going to be
very careful. What is it actually?
It's a Tanzanian lion killing club. I don't know the name. Han should know. He's from South Africa. So, and again, I probably already plugged this, mushrooms and all that stuff. Without further ado, let's get this podcast started. Okay, let's go. Okay, we won't push Tim's buttons too much right now, but the second he feels he's off the hook, we're coming back in.
With the stick.
Let's talk about recently what's been going on, but actually, sorry, let's peel back. Now, the last time you were on, you were just launching Tim Newton Today, essentially at 0 subscribers. You grew exponentially. I'm not going to say it's because of this podcast, but no, honestly, it's probably most likely because of Tim's name people are searching from, and most importantly, probably Pete from Irish Times. Can you talk about the initial, when you were getting started, and again, watching your subs just grow to 5,000, 10,000, that feeling and what you went through?
Well, initially, I didn't know if I'd get 100 subscribers. I just didn't know. YouTube is a funny game, and I'd learned a bit about it over the sort of 5 or 10 years I was working in previous news organizations. But I realized that I had this sort of niche. I had this body of knowledge about Thai news and Thai sort of concerns for expats. I thought, well, I can at least weaponize that little niche, and that's really what I've done. I've just been scrupulously consistent, like turning up every day, doing the news. And when the news is really interesting, I'll do better, and when it's not that interesting, I'll do worse. So I'm very much a victim of the news cycle. At the moment, there's not that much happening. I mean, the government's not banning this or letting people come in without visas or whatever. So I just have to work with the news cycle. But I'm grateful, very, very grateful for how well it's gone. But I really do work pretty hard at it.
Yeah, again, you had to kind of come out the door swinging. And I still think a lot of your subscribers that were following the Thaiger, I mean, where did Tim go? We got to find Tim. That transition was pretty quick from the time you left the Thaiger to the point in which you launched Tim Newton Today. How long did that take?
Well, I actually backed out of being on camera at the Thaiger probably about a month or two before I actually finished working for them, because I wanted there to be a good natural transition, and I wanted them to be able to manage that. But it was probably 3 months off camera in total. Irish Times, Pete, thank you very much, and yourself, Brendan, for interviewing me when I left, because both those interviews did sort of launch the channel and gave me a chance to have a bit of a springboard to what I'm doing. But, I mean, YouTube's a difficult game. I do a daily program, and I think doing a daily program makes a difference as well, because in my case, it's about current affairs. So you have to do it daily. You can't do a weekly current affairs show. So it is a challenge for me. It's a discipline that I have to get up every day, no matter how I feel, or no matter how little news there is or how much news there is. I've got to turn up and do it every day. But that, I suppose, if anybody asks me what is the secret, well, it's sort of been hard work, really.
Every day, how much prep time are you kind of putting into each, let's call it episode or show for the day?
Oh, that's interesting. You were my guest on the live program.
I came in great shape, yeah.
Yeah, you just did your foot in at the time. So we're not going to talk about your foot again.
No.
We talked about it the whole day. Brendan's foot. So I get up at 5:30. I'm sitting down at the desk at 6. By 7 o'clock, I've gone through the stories. I've marked them up on my iPad. I then take around about a half hour to record it. Because I record it, I've got that luxury. If I bugger something up, I can go back and do it again. Live YouTube is so much easier, because when you do it once and start and finish, and then you can walk away. This way, I've sort of got that safety net, and that trampoline beneath me, the recording of it, means that I can go back and sort of sharpen things up if I need to. Or I might even be near the end of the video going, oh, I've got a great line for that story 3. So you tend to manicure it a bit more. I'm actually getting into a bad habit of overdoing it.
Yeah, especially for the news. You don't need to dissect it.
No, but now I suppose I try and just come up with witty, funny things, and sometimes they don't necessarily come when you're doing the story. They just come into your mind a bit later. But I always get it uploaded by 9 o'clock as best I can. And it's not, I don't think, an ideal time to do the news, because all the newsmakers, they're writing the story sort of in the morning and early afternoon. Publishing by late afternoon is when you get the last story. I really should be doing it in the early evening when all the news is fresh, because by the time I'm doing it the next morning, they're all yesterday's stories. So I do throw in a lot of analysis rather than just saying, here's the stories. I say, I disagree with this, or this is wrong, or that's blatantly wrong, or look at the way these two news sources are reporting the same thing and they're different.
Do you think you would do that? Maybe transition into like a 5 or 6 o'clock show as well?
As well.
Well, not as well, or maybe just go with that.
Well, again, like doing anything on YouTube, you make changes to what you're doing, and it might be that I've got a sort of a semi-successful formula now. You do anything to change that, and I tried with young Nick. We were doing the daily live program. It just didn't work. The viewers hated it. So I had to change that really quickly. I could see the views going down. So I had to react to that, and now Nick turns up. Thank you, Nick. He does a great job. He turns up on Saturdays, and we do the live program once a week, and people seem happy with that. So now I've got the new thing of a grumpy old man. I'm sure we'll talk about Steve later. And that is me trying once again to do something outside of the little news box that I'm sort of stuck in every day, because there's more to me than just reporting the news. I would like to think that I've got a little bit more to offer. So it's sometimes a bit difficult to do that through a newsy sort of situation where people expect you to be serious. And some stories are deadly serious. But luckily in Thailand, there's so much more that happens here that is absolutely bizarre. And I love those stories as well.
Well, it's like on our first episode we did, you explained that when you were working at the Thaiger, one of your creative ways to find content that would stick is you would just try everything and change things every other week, and then something stick and you would kind of lean into it. You don't have that much flexibility now Is there a reason for that? Like why you can't be more flexible like you were at the Thaiger?
Well, look, at the Thaiger, there was very much a risk culture. Try things, but I'm more conservative. I like trying something for a week or a month and then making a sort of a long considered decision. At Thaiger and the other businesses owned by the company that were shareholders in the Thaiger, that they were very risk centric. They wanted to make changes, make them quickly. If they fail quickly, and then move on, try with another idea. I'm much more conservative than that. So now that I've sort of gripped onto something that is semi-successful, I'm loath to try and change it too quickly. But I do want to, but I know that I need to do it fairly slowly. YouTube, like all the modern social media, does give you the tools, though, to be able to measure how things are going almost in real time. And as soon as I've uploaded the program on a daily basis, I can see in the first 5 minutes if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. And I can make some changes, do a bit of shuffling of the timestamps or add in a few more keywords or change the thumbnail. And you can make changes once you've uploaded it. But at the end of the day, once it's uploaded, it's done. And you have to just learn some quick lessons, what worked, what didn't work, and make sure you're trying to do a better job the next day. And when I sit down every day, I do think to myself, okay, I've got to do a better job than I did yesterday. And I had in mind this morning, actually, going back to my very first TNT and having a look at it and going, right, I have improved. God, I hope I've improved.
Well, it's these small incremental changes. Like if we go back to episode 20 or our first one with you, and we watched the one today, and then it looks black and white. And we can't even tell you half the time of what we changed.
It was in black and white. That's how old it was.
I want to jump into what you're doing with Steve Ross and also your retirement type of venture you're getting into. Before that, since both me and Tim are sponsored by 5 Star, maybe we're going to do a little sponsorship and have a little chat about who 5 Star is and what they're doing. So I'll jump in and maybe throw it to Tim and he can finish it off. Okay, so first, we're going to let you know 5 Star Marine, they're helping sponsor this podcast. So they're making this all possible that we can operate every week and Hans still gets paid. Without 5 Star, Hans isn't getting paid. This show shuts down. Who is 5 Stars? So Sean Stenning has reached out to us. Well, we connected, and they are a 5-star luxury speedboat yacht, private yacht touring company on the island of Phuket, Thailand. Now, they're going to be taking you around to Koh Phi Phi, Ao Nang, different places within the Phang Nga Bay area. And Tim is going to explain to you why they're so special.
Well, Sean's got an amazing story, as you know.
Yeah.
They really started just before COVID, and during COVID, there wasn't a lot of people coming for private charters, so they started doing the food program, the food bags, and they worked really, really hard, became a strong family of staff, and now, since people are coming back, they've been buying new boats and expanding the business. But if you want a premium private tour off the island of Phuket, there's really nobody better than 5 Star Marine. And I mean, there's 32 islands around Phuket. And on any particular day, no matter how good or bad the weather is, there's always going to be a beach which is worth visiting that's going to make your Instagram page go crazy.
That's perfect. So Hans can clip that out, and we're actually going to use Tim's sponsorship on every episode now. I don't have to do it anymore. Okay, perfect. Let's go to your favorite part about YouTube and your channel, the comment section. When you have to go through that comment section and read these lunatics, is there a face, a picture you can put to them? Like, who do you see in your mind of who they are?
Well, look, the comment section is just one of those things you need to cope with. And if you're going to be a YouTuber or anybody in social media as a content creator, and you're going to get worried about what they say, and a lot of it is completely unfiltered, then you're going to have bad mental health problems. So it's not that I block out the negative stuff. I mean, you can just delete them if you want to, but that's not necessarily the best thing to do.
Unless it's past there's a line.
There is a line, and I think these days when people disagree with you or have got a different point of view, you need to actively encourage that. but particularly when you're doing news and you're talking about occasionally quite controversial topics. But if people either attack me personally or other commenters, I have no hesitation in deleting those people. But I also sometimes go, oh, yeah, they're right. Or, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have said something different. So you can learn from some of them as well. So I think I've got a much healthier attitude towards the comment section than I used to. I used to worry about all the personal attacks. But now, because the channel's just me, I don't have to worry about a bigger business around me. I can just delete them and not even have to think about them again.
Is there a reoccurring personal attack that you're like, guys, come on, seriously, again?
Well, I don't give them a chance for another one. If they do a personal attack, I have no hesitation.
Just block.
Just block,
okay.
just immediately. Because there's no reason for doing that. Have a go at what I'm saying, disagree with what I'm saying, have a go about the topics, no problems. But once you start attacking the person, that's just not on.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Well,
really
it's not on in my world. It's not a way that I would respond if I was in a bar and talking to somebody and I disagreed with their point of view. I wouldn't say, you're an idiot. I just wouldn't respond like that.
Yeah, you get the keyboard warriors, which kind of leads me into the grumpier old men, because I think there's a hidden part of that show. I've read a few of the comment section. Oh, there's a part 2 of every show. You have the show itself, and then you probably have Steve Ross in the comment section.
Yes. Okay. So Grumpy Old Men was a bit of an idea I've had for a while. I don't know if I saw another program called Grumpy Old Men in the past, but I thought it would be very appropriate for some of the older retired people here in Thailand. Well, not quite retired, but who could have a bit of a whinge and a laugh on camera, but also in amongst that, perhaps pass on a bit of wisdom of a life lived well or badly, and share that with people in a sort of a humorous way. Now, there's meant to be 3 of us, and from the start there was 3 of us, but the third one hasn't turned up yet. So it's been Steve and me having a bit of a two-way. I really enjoy it. Steve's a character, as you know. Steve Ross, R-O-S-S-E, as he'll keep on telling you.
Yeah, he's been on the program once. I think we'll bring him back.
Once is enough. You only want him once.
Oh, we'll get him back. I think. Well, we'll go into that with the third missing member. But are you going up to Steve's place to film every time?
Sure. Steve is he's a curmudgeon, and he'll acknowledge that he's a curmudgeon, and he hates coming to Phuket. He's got a lot of reasons to hate Phuket, which he loves telling you about in excruciating detail. But he lives up about an hour north of Phuket. For me, you might think it's inconvenient, but I love just packing up the mixer and a couple of mics, going for a drive up to a beautiful beach, Tai Muang, and he lives in this cheap little old store 80 metres from the water. It's a fantastic location. He's living the life. He whinges about it and he laughs about it, but he's living the life that a lot of people, even myself, are quite envious of. But I love actually going up there. We usually record a couple of programs every second week. But even if I have to go up there every week, it wouldn't bother me. I'd move up there, but there's no real nice houses up there.
Yeah, and you get pretty disconnected from the Western world. There's no villa markets. You're going to be eating quite Thai at that level.
Yeah, and that wouldn't particularly bother me. But, I mean, it's easy enough to come back to Phuket once a week and do the things you have to do, immigration, go and do your shopping, whatever. But it is a really nice area, and I really enjoy going up there. And Steve's a delight on camera and off camera, and he's very lucky that I found him.
Well, Steve I'm assuming,
saved him.
Steve might be watching this episode, so only kind words for Steve, and come back on, and we hope to get you back on.
No, don't have him back on.
Well, I think he said he'll start to come out here once the tourism drops down a bit. He said the price obviously is quite high for hotels, and it's just so busy right now.
Well, I offered that he could come and stay in my house once. Thankfully, he said no, so I haven't had to put up with him coming back. But he's a funny guy, and it's going to be an interesting dynamic when the third grumpy old man, or it might be a woman, turns up. And that's going to change the dynamic completely because we're going to be going from 2 to 3. So I think I'm going to be sitting between Baz, Baz Daniel and Steve on one side. They're quite different people. And I'll be in the middle sort of going, oh, guys. So looking forward to that when it happens.
Yeah, it was kind of played off. The initial concept was like the Muppets, these two, that's what Steve was saying, these two Muppet characters that would kind of go back and forth and have this comedic routine as well.
Well, yeah, people are saying, is it the two old guys sitting up in the box, or is it Bert and Ernie? But
or Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon, yeah. We don't really sort of see ourselves as, we're not comparing ourselves with anybody. We're really just turning up each week. We sort of have a couple of notes of things we want to talk about, and we get to the end and we haven't spoken about any of them. So it's just me trying to find something a little bit different than talking about the news. I tend, when we go through the topics each week, to pick topics that I know have been in high circulation in the news during the week. But Steve's got so many stories and anecdotes. That's where the program ends up going. And I suppose it's me just there throwing a bomb into the middle and seeing how Steve responds, and then just mocking him. That's sort of
I see you had like a duck there. Are you squeezing that when you can't get a word in? You're like, all right, Steve.
So the duck has become, the yellow duck. The protesters used it as a bit of a symbol. I use it to shut him up. So if I reach out towards the duck, he knows it's time to shut up.
Yeah, because I've had Steve on, and I mean he's a wordsmith, and he can kind of keep the conversation flowing. It's very difficult to get a word in on Steve.
Well, all you need to do is just sort of say a word, Steve, trousers, and he'll just talk for the next 20 minutes.
Let's jump more into the news, what we were discussing downstairs, which is this controversial stuff, and your thoughts on the upcoming elections and the decriminalization of cannabis.
Well, of course, the decriminalisation of cannabis started before I'd left my past employer. And from the get-go, I looked at this change, this sudden and undebated change, and think to myself, why has this suddenly happened? This is not a progressive government. This is a conservative government. There is no way that the Prime Minister and most of the other sort of ex-army thugs would be supporting this. Why are they doing it? Oh, because it's the head of the Pumjai Thai party. He had at the time 45 MPs who were contributing to the coalition. Without them, they didn't have a coalition. Promises were made, and coming up to the end of their term, they had to acknowledge the promise that was made. But when the actual cannabis bill came to Parliament, it got knocked down 6 times. And everybody, except for the Pumjai Thai MPs, were voting against it, including the members of his own coalition. So they were saying, we'll let you decriminalise cannabis, but at the same time, we're not going to pass any laws that let anything happen. In the intervening time, a lot of people assumed that decriminalising cannabis suddenly turned Thailand into Amsterdam. That was never the intention, and Anaton's even gone out of his way to say that that was never the intention. And what's become a broad recreational use, which is like spread like wildfire around Thailand. I mean, you can't walk down any tourist street without smelling cannabis everywhere. Every second shop's turned into a retail shop. My understanding is that was never the intention of the bill. And we've now got an election coming up, and I think there's going to be a hard landing to all this.
What was the intention? What do you think it was?
Well, from Anaton? Well, I think his intention was to decriminalise cannabis for all the good reasons to get people who were using small amounts out of jails. And that's fair enough. There are other ways of tackling an overuse or a misuse of this particular herb. But they did see the value in allowing it as a crop, the use of hemp, of course, and but I don't think the recreational use was ever, of course, the medicinal uses, the recreational use was never on the radar, but people have assumed that that's the way it was going to happen. So I found that very interesting from the start. I thought it was all about the politics. And now you've got a situation where the parties that are going to be leading the next coalition have vocally said, they said during the debates of the cannabis bill, it's in their election portfolios, they are not going to support the recreational use of cannabis in the future. So when this bill eventually comes up, probably sometime later this year, I think people are going to get a surprise that what people say, the genie in the bottle, it's going to be impossible to get the, by the way, genies are in lamps, not bottles, or getting the toothpaste back into the toothpaste tube. I think there is going to be a move to try and actually roll back this completely open use, which people assume is what was intended. That was never intended. And I've, from the start, and people have criticised me for taking this stance, but I think in the end I might be proven right. Happy to be proven wrong, but just analysing and reading, sort of sifting through the tea leaves, I think that people who have invested a lot of money in this are going to get surprised, and the government, I believe, will try and wind this back.
So what will happen? All these cannabis shops around the island, are they getting shut down? Are there certain licenses that will have to come out that, well, who gets those licenses? What do you think is going to happen?
Look, for those people who, with the best of intentions, have gone out to try and make some money out of this change in the criminalisation laws. There's people who are investing in plantations. There are people who have set up very elaborate retail stores. So, but the government never said that you can do this. People have assumed they can do this, and the cannabis bill's never been passed so that there was something on paper saying, oh, you can do this, but you can't do that. It's all been assumed. And until there is an actual cannabis bill, then that will continue. And the police can't walk in and go, well, I'm sorry, we're going to arrest you, because they've got no bill. They've got no legal entity to hang on to do that. So, and just think about it. The police, they used to make a lot of money out of, blackmailing people. Sorry, you've been caught with a small amount of cannabis. Give us some money or we'll take you to jail. They're not getting any of that money anymore. There's a lot of other people in the economic ecosystem who aren't making any money out of this anymore. So I think when people say, oh, there's so much money to be made, there was a lot of money being made out of cannabis before. And I've always said, personally, I don't care. If people want to use cannabis, it doesn't bother me what people do in their spare time. I don't particularly like it. I don't like the smell, but that's just my opinion. If people want to use it, it doesn't bother me. And those people that enjoy using it will continue to use it, whether it's legal or not. Whether people should be smoking inside a restaurant when they can't actually smoke cigarettes legally, that's when I think it's just gone too far the other way. So I think there is going to be a wind back. There is nothing surer.
I mean, they have the same problem with the vape pens and the cigarettes, and you still see it everywhere. Can you dig a bit deeper? Because technically these vape pens, they're illegal in Thailand, but every kid on the corner has one.
Yeah, I think this is another problem. And I think vaping is a totally different issue. And again, I don't care if people want to vape. At the office I used to work in, half the office was vaping. It was just this fumes of...
Yeah, we got Hans always vaping over here. But still, it's going to be in direct competition with the Thai tobacco industry. So I'm assuming that's probably why they try to push that down.
Well, people have said that, but of course you could tax vaping if you wanted to introduce it. There are some legitimate concerns about if it's good or bad, and I think there's now been enough studies to show that vaping's not really much better than cigarette smoking. But should people be allowed to do it? Again, even if it is criminalised. There's not as if they're picking people up on the street and taking them off to prison and deporting them. So there's a lot of these fuzzy laws in Thailand, and whilst the police have got options for fining people, probably nothing much is going to change. It's a hard one.
When you're doing your research for your daily show, do you ever look to American or Australian or UK news, what's going on, and those hot trending topics, allow them to bleed into your show as well, even if it's not happening so much in Thailand?
A really good question. And I do think when there's hot topics that I find interesting, US politics I find gun laws in America. I find these things quite fascinating. I've got a point of view about them, but I try not to let them go onto my channel because, I mean, my niche is Thai news in English. And there's millions of other channels that talk about all those other issues. And I don't really want to compete with them. And at the same time, it's a bit difficult for me to whinge about American gun laws because I'm not American and I don't have a gun. So people could rightfully say, it's not your business, stop talking about it. However, if there's shootings in Thailand, for example, and there have been recently, I may draw comparisons to what's happened in the US or what happened in Australia when there was a huge crackdown on gun laws, which has resulted in a massive drop in mass shootings. That evidence is quite clear, but what happens in the US is much deeper and more complicated. But I don't let those things really creep onto the channel.
I think now, like what I never watched the news back in Canada or US or wherever. Obviously from Canada, but there's a huge...
Does anything ever happen in Canada? Or?
I think South Park covered it all years ago. We're okay. There's a huge trans movement now, and I think that can connect to Thailand because that's always been here and it's always out in the open. And I mean, we have our lady boys here, but so that movement you don't really notice here. Now it's huge in the US, and kids are taking... they're taking hormones and they're being, mutilated. Do you touch upon that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Steve and I covered this recently, and we do talk about the different approach of just regular Thai people to people who are transgender. And it's a very different dynamic. I think a lot of foreigners come here and they sort of go, have a bit of a giggle behind their hand, but most Thais don't think twice about it. It's very much a part of the culture here. I find it difficult, again, and I don't want to sort of get into the politics, but you will find that there are some politicians in the US who will spend hours whinging and talking and getting headlines about a trans person reading to children, but they couldn't give a fig about 32 people getting killed in a mass shooting. There's just total dichotomy in what makes news there. But I don't, again, let that come into the discussions. But when there are discussions about transgender issues in Thailand, I think it's worthy to compare it to what happens in other parts of the world. But Steve and I did recognise that there is a massive difference, and that you can, on a day-to-day basis, walk into a shop and there'll be a transgender person serving you, and I don't blink an eye. I don't even sort of think about it anymore.
Are they taking hormones at a young age in Thailand, kind of what they're really trying to push back in the US?
Well, who's pushing that? I mean, I think there's people who assume that there's someone pushing it. And I don't think there's anybody sort of forcing any young person into anything. But a lot of politicians like to think that there is some huge push to, let these youngsters harm themselves. It's a very complicated and a very personal issue. And I think that each person needs to be left to decide that and talk about it with their family and a properly trained physician. The politicians should just keep out of it. What happens in the bedrooms of anywhere in the world is nothing to do with the politicians. So in the same way in Thailand, every trans person has gone about it in their own personal way. Some go into the hormones, some have a full physical transition, some really don't do anything, they just dress up. So everybody does it in their own way, but I don't care. I really don't care. If a person wants to live their life any way they want, I couldn't care less. And literally, if a trans person walks in, I don't bat an eyelid. I'd care about what they've got to say and who they are. What's between their legs is of no interest to me.
The opposite side of the argument, and it's been recent, I would say in the past week, a lot of people are coming out and saying trans people are mentally ill. What are your thoughts on that? This is a recent headline. I've seen it all over Twitter for about the past week and a half.
I'm just checking my notes. I didn't think we were going to be talking about this. So what do I think about it? I think anybody that... No, I don't want to get into the politics. I don't think they're mentally ill. There's just a whole lot of grey when it comes to sexual dysfunction. There's a lot of grey between the black and the white. And I think the more we know and the more we acknowledge that there are so many shades of grey, the better understanding and the more tolerance we'll have. But certainly a mental illness can come to anybody. Being transgender is not one of them. But of course, transgender people, like anybody else, can suffer from depression. And given some of the hurdles they have to jump over, I wouldn't blame them for having more mental health issues. But transgenderism in itself is not a mental issue. And it's silly for people to say so.
Yeah, I think even going back to ladyboys, they were, even as far back as 1,000 years ago, they were well revered by the monks as well. There's actually quite a deeper history behind it. It's not a recent movement. Have you looked into the history of it in Thailand?
Yeah, I know a bit more about it, and there's some countries in Polynesia who also honour people who are transgender, and sometimes there is a necessity for, if there's a lot of males in the family, for one of them to take on more of a feminine role to provide that type of dynamic to the family. But every culture is different, and they need to be recognised and understood. And I've got no problems with further studies being done into these things and into the history and the cultural dimensions. But at the moment, it's become a political football, which is absolutely ridiculous. Politicians need to stay out of this stuff. As I said, what happens in the bedrooms around the world is of no interest, or should be of no interest, to politicians, who really, at the end of the day, should be fixing the roads and, building bridges.
Do you think these politicians, they're manipulating the media and the news because there's a hidden bill they're trying to pass behind the table? So what's on the agenda this week to piss off everyone in the public? Let's bring that up. And, while that's going on, let's try to pass this bill. Is that usually the case?
Oh, look, I think some of these are hot button issues. And for example, in the US, you've got a strong religious right wing, and they are dominating. And I think they're using a book written 2,000 years ago by ignorant sheep herders as a way of defining American politics. And these hot button issues do make the headlines, but they're not really things that I think are even slightly worthwhile in talking about. Here in Thailand, I mean, in the next, before the end of this year, there will be a bill to introduce same-sex marriage in Thailand. And I guarantee that it's just not going to make the headlines. There might be some story saying the bill's coming up or the bill's being debated, but I guarantee on social media there just won't be a fuss about it. Not anything like some Western countries that were sort of going, oh my God, the world's going to end. The sun won't come up tomorrow if we introduce this bill. Of course, that hasn't happened in any of the countries that have introduced same-sex marriage. And people would ask, with Thailand, with sort of from the outside having such a free approach to sexual norms from the outside, would ask, why don't they have same-sex marriage already? But I think it's just a natural transition. It'll happen, probably happen before the end of this year.
I wasn't aware of that. And also here, it's so diluted now. Everyone's used to it. You don't blink an eye. It's not something you would maybe 20 years ago back in the West where people would kind of give a second look. I think it's has that really ever existed in Thailand, or it's just always been there?
Yeah, again, as Westerners looking from the outside, we go, wow, what a sort of a free and easy, sexually revolutionary society it is. But in Thai families, they're still quite deeply conservative, and it's one of those things that is not discussed. That, of course, is changing with the younger generation coming through. But there is definitely a contrary to what we see as Westerners, there's still quite a conservative dimension in Thai culture towards same-sex marriage.
Okay, well, let's transition to a hot topic happening.
Transition, you say?
You caught me on my pun. Okay. We're transitioning to a hot topic with Tim Newton today, and we were discussing with Chris Parker on Chris Parker Retired Working for You, and how you monetize your platforms. And obviously he went down that service route. He's doing medical tourism. Yourself, you're going to be getting into retirement tourism. Does that align with Tim Newton Today and what you're all about?
Well, it's sort of putting 2 and 2 together and getting 17. Years ago, I saw a movie called The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. I'm sure a lot of your viewers have seen it. And I thought, what a great idea, outsourcing tourism. In that film, there were 7 or 8 elderly British people, all from different areas, who, for whatever reason, weren't able to afford to retire in their own country. So they'd go to another country, in that case, India. And, of course, they go to the internet and they find this place that promises a palace with sort of hordes of elephants wandering through the paddocks. And when they went there, it was just a dump, and that provides the comedy for the show. But the key phrase in it was, why die in your own country where you can come here and die instead? And I mean,
will that be your slogan?
No, probably not. But the idea of providing a high quality, a place where people can, with all the services for retired people, which may be anything from being able to get a visa for a long stay, or it may be something like renting a car or being picked up at the airport, getting good medical services. We'd have all that covered, but essentially it's really just an elaborate, only 7 rooms. When I say rooms, I mean they're large, 150 square metre rooms, but it's really just a glorified hotel. And but I'm going to try and use my program to leverage to those people who watch it, who are a lot of 40-plus males and females, who may be looking to think to themselves, I can't afford to retire in my own country, but you could afford to retire here quite comfortably in Thailand. Now, I've got 12 years of experience. I've met so many people. A lot of my friends are fellow retirees. There probably isn't much I don't know about retiring in Thailand. A lot of people think it's all about visa and getting a condo. That is about 2% of what you need to do to retire in Thailand. There's so much more. And getting back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of it is to do with mental health, coming with a plan, coming with something to do. The worst thing you can do is just arrive in Thailand with a wad of money and thinking, right, it's going to be like my 7-day holiday in Patong 20 years ago. Retiring here is nothing like that. And we want to be able to provide the information to advise people that there are a lot of other things you need to think about besides getting a visa and a place to live.
Are you going to have a special place for Steve Ross that can welcome all the guests?
I think we'll probably invite Steve once a week to sit at the head of the table and wax lyrical and the world according to Steve. He'd be a very welcome guest.
And
I don't want him moving in, but
God, yeah. I mean, hey, Steve, you're welcome once a week. It's probably just about enough. And would you be planning to kind of build the own Tim Newton suite for yourself, maybe in the future?
Well, I mean, being utterly selfish, this would be a place that I would like to go to. I'm still active. I'm still healthy. I've still got a few years left. And I am very lucky at the age of 64 to be healthy and really still filled with ambition and plans for the future. But there will be a time where I'll need to slow down. And I suppose the place that I'm not so much building, because it exists already, we're just taking over the lease. It means that there'll be somewhere for me to go. And I will learn very quickly about what people are looking for and what they're not looking for. The things that I think are important may not be important. And we'll just massage it until we sort of get the formula right. But it's the sort of place that I would like to think that I could go to. It's nowhere near Bangla Road. It's nowhere near shopping centres or even beaches. It's a nice, quiet location. But we'll provide options to transport people wherever they want to go and try and make things easy. Because sometimes things that might be easy in the West are difficult here in Thailand. and we'll try and make those things easy as well.
And you give yourself 20 years to iron out all the issues. So when your time to move in, this place is perfect, ready to go.
Well, given your health concerns,
I think I'll be in there before you.
You might be in there before me, Brendan.
What's the ambience going to look like in terms of the design, the decor? Like, how can you how do you vision this place looking? It's obviously not going to be the Shawshank Redemption, prison hotel. Where do you see? How is Tim Newton going to design this?
That's a fair question. I didn't think I'd be talking about interior decoration either.
That's what happens on this podcast. You come on with ideas, and we don't go near them.
Thanks, but it won't be anything like the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which was a bit of a dump. This is a property that was built about 15 years ago. It's still quite modern. Needs a bit of a clean, a bit of a paint. But as far as the decor is concerned, it's going to be sort of retro modern. In other words, we use a lot of timber furniture, colours of blue, sort of a tropical vibe without being over the top, without being sort of flowery shirts.
And the name that you shared earlier?
It's probably going to be called, well, I've gone through so many names and we're probably a good 2 or 3 months from opening. But at the moment, it's going to be called Blue Moon Bay. But that might change between now and even the end of the day.
So again, this very tropical vibe, very blue, like these blues, these greens, these like earth tone colors, pastels? Or?
It's going to be sort of natural tones, the blues. I see blue very much as a colour which represents Phuket with the blue sky and the blue waters and sort of the turquoises and the grey blues and things, but mostly timbers and natural sort of tones. So it's not going to be bright pinks or anything gaudy or anything like that. Sort of place that you could call home and relax in. That's really important. But it's not a representation of me. I've actually gone into quite a few. There's a few good decorating shows on Netflix. What is it called? One of them is this American couple called the McGee's. And if you watch that show, you'll sort of get an idea of what I'm going for. But to give you an idea, the whole blue thing started when I always wanted a car to be able to pick up people at the Phuket airport. I wanted to make sure when they arrive, the first impression they got was not the taxi mafia. Mm. So we always organised a car. So I need a nice car. So I've bought an old 1980 sky blue Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, God.
So if you come and stay at our Blue Moon Bay, you're going to be picked up by a 1980 pale blue, sky blue Mercedes-Benz, perhaps even driven by me occasionally.
Oh, I should have sold you. I got the 1989 Volvo out there. We're getting rid of it now.
No. Volvo doesn't have quite the...
This is the safety precaution when everyone gets in. No one's getting injured.
Yeah. Which, I think Mercedes are much like that. I mean, these things are built like a tank, and they're unstoppable. It's got a new engine in it and a few other things, but it'll probably end up rusting and falling apart. And I'm not sure if it'll keep on getting up the hill because it's quite a steep hill to get where we are. But from that, I then sort of built everything around that blue thing. I don't know. That's where it came from.
Were you a fan of Seinfeld, the show, or no?
Of course.
Okay. So is it going to have that feel of like Frank Costanza down at Del Boca Vista, where you're going to have, or Morty from, Jerry's father, where you're going to have the mayors and, the presidents in there and they're making decisions. You got shuffleboard going, or what can we envision?
No, it'll be a benign dictatorship. It'll be me saying, this is what you're going to do, and like it or not.
Yeah.
One of the things we sort of wanted to do was make sure we had like a free breakfast and encourage people to come and enjoy that free breakfast. And if they don't see anybody for the rest of the day, come and get together, have breakfast together as a community. That community will change from time to time. Some people come for a week. Other people will come for years. And I always wanted that idea of having a breakfast. So we've sort of made sure that's included in the sort of the costs. That was all. So we've got a great big table so everybody can sit around. And I thought, again, that's just one of the things that I think would be important is to have that communal table, get together. If you had an argument the day before, just get it out of the way and have a laugh and move on. So, it's a bit of a change for me. I'm still going to be doing my daily program, but I'll be able to talk about it on the program and maybe get a few people turning up.
And then instead of cats rolling in the background, maybe a couple people with dementia.
there will be at least 3 cats there. Yes. So if you don't like cats, I'm not sure if they won't hang around the guests.
Okay, so before we're going to wrap this up, we're always trying to now keep the episode under about an hour or so. YouTube has the gun to our head.
We've only been on for 5 minutes, haven't we?
Yeah, we fly by. This show, the guests, we make them feel...
What are you going to be using?
Well, you did well. We didn't have to use it on you today. So
okay, all right. I was looking forward to it.
You get the pass. Now, before we wrap the show up, Tim's wearing one of his lovely T-shirts that you have not wore in probably... I don't know if you've even worn this on Tim Newton today. Let's talk about... So people can understand Tim's T-shirts from the Thaiger, that's what they were before. Maybe you're escaping that character, but also lean into what you guys did specifically for the Seeds of Change.
Okay, well, I used to wear these quite loud Hawaiian Songkran type shirts, and I had a collection of about 30 of them. And when I sort of moved from that business to the new one, I wear this sort of thing much more rarely. Not that I'm particularly loud in my dress sense, but it became a bit of a thing. But I thought, how can I get rid of these shirts? What am I going to do with them? I don't really want to keep wearing them. I wanted a bit of a change. So I donated them to Seeds of Change, who have turned them into these, I'll send you a picture so you can put it up, these magnificent toy elephants in 3 different sizes. And then we auctioned them off to my viewers, who were so incredibly generous. We raised 210.
Yeah, we lost a camera just in case anyone battery died.
210,000 baht, an amazing, generous result from our viewers. So very, very thankful to them. Yeah, make sure it's on me.
Yeah, one sec. We're going to zoom in. We're going to fix it. Yeah, don't put it on me.
Don't put it on Brendan. Thank you very much.
There we go.
Do I look okay?
Yeah, I look great.
No wrinkles?
I don't know about that.
So that was really good. 210,000 baht, which every single baht went to Seeds of Change. So thank you to my viewers for getting behind that charity and supporting them.
And explain a bit more what they were doing specifically with the funding. Who is that supporting?
Well, Seeds of Change is quite interesting because what they do is they have been able to offer women primarily who sort of fall between the cracks of networks, family situations, some of them Burmese workers, young mums who have got kids. So it's an option for them to learn sewing skills. And it really has made a lot of difference to a lot of mostly younger women to give them a network, gives them a chance, that idea of sitting around a table, that community. And they have got access now to a whole lot of different programs and things that will be able to help them in the future, apart from just getting together with other young mums on a daily basis. And Seeds of Change are basically teaching them how to sew. And they get paid for making these fantastic toy elephants. So we had some 31 toy elephants made from my old shirts. And, oh no, there's more than that, about 50 or 60, I think. But they get donations of fabric every single day, and they've got this room where it's all sort of allocated, and they wash them, and they've got the reds and the greens and the blues, and they're making these amazing toy elephants. In fact, every guest that comes to my hotel, I'm going to make sure they get one of those Seeds of Change toy elephants as part of their visit, because they are, to me, uniquely Phuket, made by people that live in Phuket and made on the back of a really good idea by people that deserve support.
Yeah, and I think Lynn was, or sorry, not Lynn, Sue Altman was on, and she's involved in these charities as well.
Yeah, well, it's basically been patronised by Living Waters Phuket,
yes,
which Sean is behind, and Sue Altman, but it's really Sam from Seeds of Change who's led the way, and Sam is a great hard worker. And I think another Australian.
Who is? I haven't met Sam. Maybe I'll reach out.
She's a great lady, and she was the one who has been able to take Seeds of Change through a transition into what it currently is. So well done, Sam and
maybe
team.
I'll reach out to Sam. I like to kind of bring these people on that are doing this charity work because I feel they don't get enough exposure on the island, and if more people knew about it, I think more people would get involved as well.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap it up, obviously, your channel's doing great. You're monetizing. You're going to be getting involved in the retirement, the service side. Are there any other hidden nuggets you can share with your fans and viewers that maybe no one's not aware of yet, or no one is aware of yet?
No. Look, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm already quite busy doing the TNT program every day. Got a few more ideas for programs, but they're really just sort of massaging what I'm already doing. The hotel thing will really take up a lot of time, and I'm going to have to do a lot of that work myself. You know, I'll probably be making the odd bed and cleaning the odd room and clearing the odd table in the early days until we can get it going and I can employ more people. So that is going to take up a lot of my time over the next year, I'd say, the next couple of years. Let's hope it works, and it's something that I've always wanted to do.
So now you'll actually be living up. I would assume you would have to. You'll be living up there, filming there. Okay, I was thinking that was much more further in the future.
No, I'll be living there myself. I'll be living in one of the rooms and working there on a daily basis. As things pick up, I'll have staff to do things. But in the early days, I really want to be very hands-on to make sure things are done the way I want, and also get that feedback from the early guests who will be able to tell me, I'm sure, whether things are working or not working.
Yeah, you're kind of like me. I'm an absolute lunatic control freak. I have to control it all. No, we're doing the same with our products. I didn't want to put it into warehouses. You're going to see all the problems, and you can only do that hands-on.
Sure.
There's no way. You're not going to hear it if you have a third-party vendor dealing with it. They're not going to tell you the issues, right?
And again, I mean, you can sort of look at the way hotels are run in the West and think, oh, I'll do it like that. But here, operating a hotel on Phuket with a Thai staff, whole different can of worms. Yeah. And I'm lucky that I've got some good people to help me, and I'm looking forward to having a go at it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for Tim jumping on the episode. And as we always do, before I cut this out, I'm going to shoot it back to Tim. Which camera? The middle. If you can just let all your viewers know, because most likely it is your viewers that are here. And guys, don't forget, head over to the Thaiger. Hashtag Tim is taking over. And just leave those comments. Attack them. It's a social attack. We're going to kick it back over to Tim. Just let everyone know, in case they do not already know, where they can find you. And
firstly,
again, for your channel.
I do not endorse in any way what Brendan has just said. Don't do that. But yeah, look, it's called Tim Newton Today. It's on YouTube. And if you're there, subscribe, click a like button. Or if you don't like it, click the dislike button. It's all engagement. And I do a daily 15-minute talk show, which is all about the Thai news. On Saturdays, we do a live version that goes for an hour. Brendan was a guest a few weeks ago, whinging about his foot.
I almost died, all right?
And then on Sunday, I've got the Grumpy Old Men show. That's what I'm doing at the moment, and that keeps me busy. But thank you, and thank you too, Brendan.
Thank you for coming, Tim. And that wraps up another episode. Don't forget, we got links in the description. We got the lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, mushroom complex, and the one and only nootropics focus. This one will keep you dialed in, as it kept me dialed in. Actually, that's mostly coffee. But if you're not already subscribed, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks again to 5-Star Marine for sponsoring us. That's what gets Hans paid every week. So got to keep him going.
He's
too.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
He's great. Okay, that wraps it up. We're done for today, and we're out.